She was just a young woman, living in a dusty village where no one believed in kindness, until one blind street singer came along, and one small act of compassion changed everything. What happened next will shock you, touch your heart, and remind you that true goodness never goes unnoticed. Stay with me, because this story is not like any other you've heard. The morning arrived slowly, like a gentle drumbeat rolling across the land. A thin mist rested over the village, and the air carried the smell of earth warmed by the first touch of sunlight. Roosters called from distant huts, and somewhere a woman hummed softly as she swept the ground with a straw broom. Dust rose lazily along the narrow path that cut through the village like a quiet river. Children ran barefoot, their laughter bright and free. Goats wandered between small clay houses, bells tinkling with each step. Smoke curled upward from cooking fires, carrying the promise of another simple day. But not every heart woke with light. Near the roadside, beneath the wide branches of an old tree, sat a blind street singer. His back leaned against the rough trunk, and his fingers rested on a worn instrument that had known both joy and sorrow. His face was calm, yet there was a tiredness around his eyes, the kind that comes from carrying many silent nights. He began to play. Soft notes floated into the morning air, gentle as falling leaves. His voice followed, low and steady. Every road has a story. Every heart carries a song. People passed by, some listening, some lost in their own worries. At that same moment, a young woman walked along the path with careful steps. Her clothes were simple, her face thoughtful, as if she carried questions inside her that had no easy answers. She paused when she heard the music. The melody seemed to reach into something deep within her, a place she rarely allowed herself to feel. She stepped closer. "Good morning," she said quietly. The singer turned his head toward her voice and smiled. "Good morning, child of the sun," he replied softly. "Your footsteps sound kind." She hesitated, then sat on a nearby stone. "What song is that?" she asked. "A song of journeys," he said. "Of people who meet when they least expect." For a moment, neither spoke. The world around them continued, carts creaking, birds calling, life moving as always. But between them, something unseen stirred. She noticed the small bowl beside him, nearly empty. Without making a sound, she placed a few coins inside. The faint clink echoed like a quiet promise. The singer bowed his head slightly. "May kindness return to you in ways you cannot yet see," he said. She felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling both comforting and unfamiliar. As the sun climbed higher, the dust shimmered in golden light. Two strangers sat under the tree, unaware that this simple morning would become a turning point written in the memory of many hearts. And as the singer's gentle melody continued, the path ahead slowly began to open, leading them toward stories neither of them could yet imagine. The sun rose higher, and the warmth spread across the dusty ground like a quiet blessing. But beneath the shade of the old tree, the blind singer carried a different kind of heat, the slow burning of memories that never truly sleep. His fingers moved gently over the strings, as if they were speaking a language only his heart understood. The melody changed. It grew deeper, softer, carrying a sadness that made even the wind seem to pause and listen. Villagers slowed their steps. Some stood at a distance, heads slightly bowed, as though they could feel the weight inside his song. The young woman watched him closely. She noticed the way his shoulders rose with each breath, not from effort, but from something heavier, something unseen. After a long note faded into the morning air, she spoke quietly. "Your music sounds like it is remembering something." The singer smiled faintly. "My child," he said, his voice calm but worn, "every song I sing is a memory walking beside me." He lifted his face toward the sunlight. "Once, I could see the colors of the sky after rain, the laughter in my mother's eyes, the road stretching far into tomorrow. His fingers paused briefly on the strings. Then one season, sickness came like a silent thief. It took my sight, and with it, many dreams I had not yet lived. The woman felt her throat tighten. And your family? She asked gently. He nodded slowly. Gone, like footprints after a storm. Now, I travel with only my voice and the kindness of strangers. A soft breeze rustled the leaves above them, as if the tree itself was sighing. He began to sing again, this time softer, almost like a whisper meant for the earth. Even in darkness, a heart can still see. Even in silence, a soul can still sing. A child nearby stopped playing and listened, eyes wide. An old man wiped the corner of his eye quietly. The young woman felt tears gathering, though she did not fully understand why. There was pain in the song, yes, but also something else, a quiet strength, like a small flame refusing to go out. She leaned forward. Do you ever feel angry? She asked. The singer chuckled softly. Sometimes, he admitted, but anger is a heavy bag. I learned to carry lighter things, hope and patience. He turned his head slightly toward her. And today, I hear kindness sitting beside me. That is enough for this morning. The woman smiled, her heart stirred by a feeling she could not yet name. The song drifted out across the village, touching walls, hearts, and hidden corners where old wounds rested. And as the last note lingered in the warm air, it felt as though the story between them was only just beginning, ready to unfold with the turning of another moment. The sun climbed high in the sky, shining like a golden drum beating slowly over the village. Heat rose from the dusty paths, making the air shimmer like a quiet mirage. People hurried along, covering their heads with cloth, seeking shade wherever they could find it. But beneath the old tree, the blind singer remained, his back straight, his instrument resting gently against his chest. Sweat glistened on his forehead, yet his face held a calm patience, like a river that knows how to wait. The young woman stood nearby watching. She noticed how few people stopped now. Morning kindness had faded into the rush of daily struggles. The small bowl beside the singer held only a few coins, not enough for a day's meal. Her heart stirred. She remembered her own empty days, the quiet hunger, the long hours when hope felt thin like smoke. Slowly, she stepped closer. Baba, she said softly, using the respectful word for elder. The sun is strong today. You should rest. The singer smiled. My child, he replied gently, a song must meet the day wherever it stands, whether in shade or fire. She looked around, then quickly walked toward a nearby stall. After a few moments, she returned carrying a small clay cup of cool water and a piece of simple bread wrapped in cloth. She knelt beside him. Please take this. The singer's fingers hesitated, as if sensing the weight of her kindness more than the gift itself. For me? He asked quietly. Yes, she said, her voice warm. No one should sing on an empty stomach. He accepted the cup with careful hands and drank slowly. A deep sigh escaped his lips, the kind that comes when thirst finally meets relief. May your path always find gentle rain, he whispered. She smiled shyly. Then, noticing the harsh sunlight, she took her scarf and tied it carefully between two low branches, creating a small patch of shade above him. A few villagers paused, watching. An old woman nodded approvingly. A young boy whispered to his friend, See, kindness is like planting a seed. The singer felt the cool shadow and chuckled softly. You have given more than water, he said. You have given comfort. She sat beside him for a moment, listening as he played a soft tune, lighter now, touched by gratitude. Inside her chest, something shifted, a quiet warmth spreading like sunrise. Sometimes, she said gently, small things are all we have to give. The singer nodded. And sometimes, he replied. Small things are the greatest gifts. The wind carried the melody across the village, and for a brief moment, even the burning sun seemed less fierce. As the day moved forward, neither of them knew that this simple act, a cup of water, a piece of bread, a patch of shade, was quietly opening a door that fate had been waiting to reveal, just beyond the horizon of their ordinary lives. As the afternoon softened and the sun began its slow walk toward the hills, the village grew quieter. Smoke rose gently from cooking fires, and the sound of distant laughter floated through the warm air. But inside the young woman's heart, there was no laughter. She walked along the narrow path toward her small hut at the edge of the village, a place where the ground was dry and the wind often whispered through cracks in the walls. Each step felt heavy. Inside the hut, a thin mat lay on the floor, and a clay pot sat empty in the corner. She paused at the doorway, taking a slow breath, as if gathering courage before entering her own life. From inside, a weak voice called, "Is that you, my daughter?" She hurried in. Her mother lay resting, her body fragile like a leaf at the end of a long season. Illness had taken much of her strength, and the lines on her face carried stories of quiet endurance. "Yes, Mama," the woman replied softly, kneeling beside her. "Did you find any work today?" her mother asked, voice trembling with both hope and worry. The woman hesitated. "A little," she said gently. "Enough for tonight." It was not fully true, but sometimes kindness begins with protecting those we love from worry. She poured a small amount of water into a cup and helped her mother drink. Outside, the wind rustled through dry grass like a distant sigh. Later, as her mother slept, the woman sat alone near the doorway, staring into the fading light. Her thoughts drifted, memories of long days carrying firewood, of doors that closed before she could speak, of whispers from villagers who saw her only as a burden. She spoke quietly to herself. "Some days feel like walking through shadows," she murmured. A tear slipped down her cheek, catching the last glow of the sun. Yet beneath the sadness, there was a stubborn spark, a quiet strength that refused to die. She remembered the blind singer's gentle smile, the way his voice carried both sorrow and peace. "Even in darkness," she whispered, "he still sings." The thought gave her a small comfort. Suddenly, her mother stirred. "My child," she said weakly, "never let hardship harden your heart. Kindness is the only wealth that cannot be stolen." The woman nodded, holding her mother's hand. "I will remember, Mama." Night slowly wrapped the village in soft shadows. Crickets began their song, and the sky filled with stars like scattered blessings. Sitting there, she did not know that the struggles she carried quietly, like stones hidden in her cloth, were being seen by eyes beyond her understanding. And somewhere not far away, under the same starlit sky, a gentle melody drifted through the darkness, as if calling her story towards something yet to unfold. Morning arrived gently, carried on the soft hum of village life. Roosters crowed from distant yards, and the scent of warm porridge drifted through the air like a quiet invitation to begin again. As the young woman stepped onto the dusty path, she felt the familiar weight of another day, but something in the air felt different, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Near the old baobab tree, the blind singer sat as he always did, his simple instrument resting across his lap. His fingers moved slowly over the strings, releasing a melody that seemed to float above the village like morning mist. A few children gathered nearby, listening with wide eyes. The woman approached with a small bundle of food wrapped carefully in cloth. "Good morning," she said softly. The singer tilted his head, recognizing her voice. "Ah, the voice of kindness," he replied with a gentle smile. "May the day greet you kindly." She sat beside him and placed the bundle into his hands. "It is not much," she said, "but I thought you might need it." The singer bowed his head slightly. What you give carries more than food, he said. It carries warmth. Nearby, an elderly woman watched from the shade, whispering to another villager. She comes every day, she murmured, even when she has little. Word began to spread quietly through the village like seeds carried by the wind. Some villagers who once passed by without noticing now paused to listen, not only to the music, but to the simple kindness unfolding before them. Later that day, as the woman helped fetch water from the well, another young girl approached shyly. I saw what you did, the girl said. It made my heart feel lighter. The woman smiled gently. Kindness grows when it is shared, she replied. Even the village chief, passing on his morning walk, slowed his steps when he heard the singer's song. He watched silently, noticing the respect in the woman's actions and the quiet dignity in the singer's presence. That evening, as golden light washed over the huts, a small group gathered around the baobab tree. The singer's voice rose, richer than before, carrying notes of hope that seemed to settle deep into every listening heart. The woman stood at a distance, unsure of the attention, yet feeling a warmth she had not known in many seasons. For the first time, whispers about her were not filled with pity, but with quiet admiration. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the village felt a subtle shift, as if something long buried was beginning to awaken. Somewhere deep within, unseen roots were taking hold, preparing to grow into something that would soon change more than one life. Night fell softly over the village, wrapping the huts in a blanket of deep blue shadows. The air grew cool, and the distant sound of crickets rose like a quiet chorus, filling the silence between breaths. A small fire flickered near the baobab tree, its light dancing on the faces gathered around. Sparks floated upward, disappearing into the vast sky where the stars watched like ancient witnesses. The blind singer sat close to the fire, his instrument resting against his chest. Tonight, his face carried a heaviness, as if the weight of unspoken words pressed gently against his heart. The young woman noticed. You are quiet, she said softly, settling beside him. Is your spirit troubled? The singer inhaled slowly, feeling the warmth of the flames against his skin. There are stories, he said, his voice low, that live in the dark, waiting for the right night to be told. She waited, patient as the earth itself. For a moment, only the crackling of fire spoke. Then he began. Long ago, he said, I walked these paths with sight in my eyes and pride in my steps. I had a home, a family, and a voice that carried joy. His fingers brushed the strings gently, releasing a faint, trembling note. But life, he continued, has ways of testing the heart. The woman leaned closer, her brows soft with concern. What happened? She asked. The singer's face turned toward the night, as though looking into memories only he could see. There was a season of greed, he said quietly. Men in power cared more for gold than for people. In their hunger, they took what was not theirs, land, peace, and sometimes hope. His voice faltered. I in the struggle that followed, I lost my sight. Not only from injury, but from sorrow. The fire popped softly, sending a shower of sparks upward. The woman felt a tightness in her chest. And since then? She asked gently. I sing, he said, because song is the only way I know to keep the light alive inside me. She placed her hand over his, offering silent comfort. Around them, a few villagers listened from the shadows, drawn by the quiet gravity of his words. After a long pause, the singer spoke again, softer now. There is more, he said. Truth has many layers, like the earth beneath our feet. The woman sensed something deeper, something waiting just beyond the edge of understanding. What truth? She whispered. The singer turned toward her voice. Sometimes, he said, those who suffer carry stories that belong not only to them, but to the whole village. A breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint scent of dust and distant rain. The night seemed to lean closer, listening. And as the fire burned low, the feeling grew that hidden threads, long tangled and forgotten, were beginning to loosen, preparing to reveal secrets that would soon change the course of many lives. Morning came with a strange stillness, as if the wind itself was holding its breath. The sun rose slowly over the village, painting the rooftops in soft gold. Yet beneath the beauty, there was a quiet tension, the kind that comes when unseen forces begin to move. People whispered near the wells and under the shade of trees. "Did you hear?" one woman murmured. "They say the chief's storehouse was found empty," another replied, eyes wide. Rumors traveled like dry leaves carried by the breeze. The young woman felt it too, a feeling deep in her bones that something long hidden was coming into the light. Near the marketplace, a crowd gathered. Voices rose, some angry, some confused. At the center stood the village chief, his face pale, his shoulders heavy, as if burdened by stones no one else could see. An elder stepped forward, leaning on his staff. "For many seasons," the elder said, his voice calm but firm, "the people have carried silent pain. Today, truth asks to be heard." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The blind singer arrived slowly, guided by the gentle sound of footsteps and voices. The young woman walked beside him. The chief avoided their direction, shifting uneasily. The elder continued, "It has been revealed that grain meant for the hungry was taken, land promised to families was claimed, and voices were ignored." The crowd stirred, anger rising like thunder before a storm. The chief swallowed hard. Sweat glistened on his brow. "I did what I thought was necessary," he said weakly. "For order, for power." A man from the crowd stepped forward. "For yourself?" he said quietly. Silence fell, heavy and undeniable. The young woman felt a wave of emotion, sadness, but also a strange sense of rightness, as if the earth itself was correcting its balance. The elder raised his hand. "Justice is not revenge," he said. "It is the returning of what was broken." He turned toward the chief. "You will restore what you have taken. You will serve those you ignored. Only then can peace return." The chief lowered his head, his voice trembling. "I accept." Nearby, the blind singer lifted his instrument and played a slow, steady melody, not of anger, but of healing. The notes floated over the gathering, soft as morning light after a storm. The young woman felt tears fill her eyes. She leaned toward the singer. "It feels like something has shifted," she whispered. He nodded gently. "When truth walks in the open," he said, "even the hardest hearts must listen." As the crowd began to disperse, there was a quiet sense that the village had taken its first step toward renewal. And somewhere deep within the unfolding day, unseen threads of destiny continued to weave, preparing the way for blessings yet to come. The days after justice felt different, like the earth itself was breathing easier. The air carried a softness, the kind that comes after heavy rain washes the dust away. Children laughed more freely in the paths, and even the old baobab tree seemed to stand taller, its leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The young woman walked slowly through the village one morning, her basket resting lightly on her arm. For the first time in many seasons, her heart did not feel weighed down. Still, memories lingered, the long nights of worry, the quiet tears no one saw. Near the marketplace, she heard a familiar melody. The blind singer sat beneath a shade, his fingers moving gently across his instrument. But today, his song carried a warmth that felt like sunrise. She sat beside him. "You sound lighter," she said softly. He smiled, turning his face toward her voice. "When heavy clouds pass," he replied, "even old songs learn to smile." She laughed quietly. Just then, footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. The village elder stood before them, holding a small carved wooden box. His eyes were kind, but serious. "My child," he said to the young woman, "the council has spoken." Her heart fluttered. "For your kindness, for standing with truth when it was easier to stay silent, the community wishes to honor you." He placed the box in her hands. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside lay a simple necklace made of polished beads and a small piece of gold, not grand, but shining with deep meaning. "These beads," the elder said, "were crafted by many hands. Each one carries gratitude." Tears filled her eyes, slipping quietly down her cheeks. "I only did what felt right," she whispered. The elder nodded. "And that is why it matters." He turned to the blind singer. "And you, keeper of songs, the council has prepared a place for you near the square, where your music will be heard and valued." The singer bowed his head, emotion thick in his voice. "You honor not me," he said, "but the stories of the people." As the elder walked away, the young woman held the necklace close to her heart. For a moment, she closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of acceptance she had longed for since childhood. "I never thought," she began, her voice trembling. The singer listened quietly. "That kindness would return like this." He chuckled softly. "The river remembers every drop that feeds it." Around them, villagers passed with gentle smiles, small gestures of respect replacing old indifference. The sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the ground. The young woman looked toward the horizon, a quiet hope rising within her, a sense that her story was not only about surviving, but about becoming. And as the melody of the singer drifted through the air, it carried with it the promise that even deeper truths and greater blessings were still waiting just beyond the next turning path. Morning came gently, like a mother waking her child with a soft touch. A thin mist rested over the village, curling around the huts and drifting slowly across the fields. The first rays of sunlight painted the earth in warm gold, as if blessing every path, every doorway, every waiting heart. Near the square, the blind singer sat in his new place, a simple wooden stool beneath the wide sky. His instrument rested on his lap, quiet for now, as he listened to the sounds of a village learning to breathe differently. Footsteps approached. It was the young woman. She wore the necklace close to her chest, the beads catching the morning light. But more than the necklace, it was her face that shone, peaceful, steady, strong. "Good morning, keeper of songs," she said softly. He smiled. "Good morning, walker of brave roads." They sat together in silence for a moment, feeling the calm settle around them. "I dreamed last night," she said, her voice thoughtful. "In my dream, the village was singing, not just you, but everyone." The singer tilted his head. "Dreams sometimes show us what the heart already knows." A group of children ran past, laughing, their feet kicking small clouds of dust. One little girl stopped, shy but curious. "Will you sing today?" she asked. The singer nodded gently. "Yes, little one. Today we sing a new song." More villagers gathered slowly. Farmers, mothers, elders, traders, drawn by a quiet sense that something beautiful was about to begin. The singer lifted his instrument and began to play. The melody was soft at first, like the first drop of rain touching dry soil. Then it grew, carrying notes of sorrow remembered, courage found, forgiveness offered. He sang of long roads walked in silence, of hearts that refused to harden, of hands that reached out even when trembling. The young woman listened, tears glistening in her eyes, not tears of pain, but of recognition. After a moment, she began to hum along. A farmer joined with a low voice. Then a mother. Then another. Soon, the square filled with voices rising together, different tones, different stories, but one shared feeling. The air seemed to vibrate with something deeper than sound, a healing that moved quietly from heart to heart. When the song ended, a gentle stillness settled. The elder stepped forward, his voice warm. "Today," he said, "we remember that a village is not only made of earth and walls, but of compassion." He looked at the young woman and the singer. "You have reminded us." The young woman felt a quiet strength spread through her chest. "I was never alone," she said softly. "I just didn't see it before." The singer nodded. "Sometimes the eyes must learn what the heart has always known." A breeze moved through the square, rustling leaves and carrying the faint scent of wild flowers from the fields. The children began to play again, their laughter ringing like bells. The young woman looked toward the distant hills, a small smile forming, not because life would be easy, but because she knew now that even in hardship, light could be found. Beside her, the blind singer adjusted his instrument. And so, from the smallest act of kindness, a whole village learned to sing a new song of hope. But remember, even when we think our actions are invisible, the universe is always watching. Who knows what miracle might come next? If you felt your heart touched by this story, hit like, share it, and subscribe, because the next story, I promise, will change your life too.